My name is Kenny Dial, and I want to welcome you to Season 3 of the Scuba Diving Podcast. John.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for inviting me into the van here.
Right?
And this is really, really cool. We're actually at DEMA, and there's our third
Coral.
guest. This is great. You do photography.
Yes.
And I know you've got a very famous page, you got a big following. What do you think triggered that initial following?
For the most part, I think the following aspect, I think I kind of hopped on social media right at the right time, and years ago, there wasn't a lot of people doing underwater photography, and maybe I shouldn't say that. There were a lot of people doing a lot of underwater photography. It wasn't as mainstream, I think, as it is now. It's not as easy nowadays to get noticed as it was back then because there wasn't that many people putting themselves out there.
Your biggest following, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's John Garza.
John Garza Photo.
John Garza Photo. No spaces, no nothing?
No spaces.
All right, we got the
Simple.
plug. Now you got a killer following.
Thanks,
now,
man.
going back to you getting into photography, obviously you have a professional rig. Actually, how I found out about you is I asked you what rig a long time ago. I know you don't remember. I asked you what rig you were using, and you told me what it was, and actually that's what I went and did. But it never really took for me.
You just got to give it time. The thing with photography is you got to do it because you love it. There's a lot of people that get into photography, and hard thing. It's like I love social media, but at the same time, I feel like social media is also like kind of an awkward thing because I always tell people, do what you want to do what you love. You take a photo if you love it. If you love a certain edit, that's what you should put out there. You shouldn't really pay attention to what everybody else is doing because there's just so many people out there. Do what makes you happy.
And so you're saying just focus on the pictures that fill your cup.
Exactly.
Don't worry about the views.
Exactly.
Because we've all seen the low-cut top, hey, look at my new necklace. Yeah, you get a lot of views.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah,
Exactly. Maybe, but.
Exactly.
Was there a time that really got you, was it a specific event where you said, I really love this?
Yeah, I grew up surfing in a small town, and I never really went beneath the surface. I was always just surfing and catching waves and hanging out on the beach. I never got into diving. My hometown, the water's kind of murky there, and you don't really want to go diving there, Plus, it's the shark bite capital of the world.
New Smyrna?
Yeah, New Smyrna.
Okay.
I grew up there, and later on in life, I ended up in Hawaii and met a group of conservationists, shark conservationists and divers, and they kind of took me under their wing, and I got just super involved with conservation, and it's actually in the military at the time, and the conservation.
You were in the military?
Yeah.
You don't strike me as a military guy.
Yeah. So I was in the Army, and the things that I was doing in the Army kind of didn't coincide of what I started to believe in and fall in love with in the ocean. So I decided not to re-enlist, followed my passion in diving and photography, and those group of individuals kind of took me under their wing and showed me a little bit of things, and I think I fell in that right time frame of everything going on where it worked out for me, and now we're running our own expeditions, and it's been amazing. Got the catamaran now, and just count my blessings all the time that I'm at where I'm at.
You guys run a catamaran charter through the Bahamas. You got a swimsuit line. We're sitting in a bus at DEMA at a big trade show, and you got a killer following online. Do you think this all started from your love of photography?
The main thing that started it for me is growing up in New Smyrna and then diving with sharks in Hawaii, and I longlined for a little while. Sadly, before I was educated and knew anything about sharks, I was long-lining sharks when I was younger. At the time, I had a few friends that had gotten bit by sharks and stuff like that, and I had a completely different outlook on sharks.
So you saw them originally as a nuisance?
Yeah. And then later on in my life, I ended up diving with sharks and just saw that they really aren't man-eaters. They aren't what you see in the news. They're not the movie Jaws. They're everything but that, To this day, I'll never forget my first time jumping in the water with sharks. I hopped in and I was absolutely terrified. It was in Hawaii. We're jumping in the water. There's 10-foot Galapagos sharks. I was my heart's beating like crazy. And I just saw that they had no interest in biting me. Yeah, they were curious. It just kind of captivated me, and I wanted to be a voice and kind of share my story with other people to maybe, try to persuade them or change their outlook on sharks. And then obviously loving sharks kind of fell into loving the rest of the ocean, coral reefs and stuff like that.
We're obviously primarily a diving channel.
Yeah.
That's kind of the core, but really everything sort of relates to it, everything from mermaids to, charters.
Yeah.
And tell me if you believe this, that people that scuba dive, most of them, had they not scuba dive, they might have had like the opinion you originally had of sharks, where they're more of a nuisance or you catch them. But once you go under and see them, that scuba diving access, to me, opened my eyes. And it seems to be most people.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Anybody that I talk to that hasn't scuba dove or really dove at all, whether it's snorkeling or anything, I encourage everybody to get in the water, because you spend so much of your life on land, and you get underwater, it's a completely different world under there, and it's always changing. You can dive the same spot over and over again, but there's always going to be a new fish. You might see a random shark swim through. It's always going to be different. It's always going to be beautiful. Even if we have a storm come through in Florida and it's murky, even when it's murky, I find beauty, like the way the light rays come through the water when it's murky. It's a completely different world under there, and it's always beautiful to me.
When do you feel like that's the perfect picture? Like, is there some emotion that it hits?
Oh, it definitely, you know when everything lines up and you're like, that's the one. That's for sure. Photography is a hard thing. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of things that have to line up in order for you to get that shot. When you get the shot, you know that you got it.
Yep. Mechanically, I see a lot of people that want to do it, and they'll kind of start diving, but they don't master that. And they're trying to hold something, and they're still struggling with things like buoyancy, the task loading, getting off the boat. What advice do you have for the newer diver to get to the point where they can become good photographers?
You kind of just nailed it, exactly what you said. It takes time, you do have to master those things. You can't just strap a scuba tank on your back or a set of fins and jump in the water with a camera and expect, everything to work out. You do want to get your buoyancy down. You want to, not only that, you want to get comfortable in the water, especially if you're diving with apex predators or whales and stuff like that. Not only do you want to feel comfortable, but if you're not comfortable, then the being that you're diving with or photographing isn't going to feel comfortable, because they can sense, things like that. And yeah, that's definitely a big factor, is just take your time, get those skill sets in order to achieve what you want to do.
You're saying that especially the apex predators, the larger animals, they sense your comfort level.
Oh, most definitely. And my big thing is, especially, I do a lot of shark diving, is, I like to just sit there on the surface, or if I'm, scuba diving, I'll just sit there for a good solid 20 minutes and just kind of learn their patterns, because most of the wildlife that you dive with, they're going to do a certain pattern over and over again. And once you learn that pattern, instead of, another big irritation that I have is people that just swim after wildlife or dive down on wildlife. I don't encourage that. Anybody that comes on our trip, if I see them do that, I pull them out of the water immediately, because it's just disrespectful. I wouldn't want someone doing that to me. But yeah, you can sit down there and kind of learn their patterns. That'll set you up for the perfect shot. You can sit there and watch them go in their pattern, especially places like Tiger Beach. Tiger sharks are always going to go in the same pattern towards the crate, because everybody ends up feeding them. I know a lot of people don't like feeding, but that's a spot where people do feed. And after a while, they'll keep on circling around, and you know exactly where they're going to go, so you can set up and get that perfect shot.
Like tiger sharks, let's say at Tiger Beach, actually circle in a somewhat predictable pattern if you learn it.
Exactly. Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah. It took me a while to learn that, but that's something that I encourage everybody to gain the knowledge, take the time, get comfortable, and just be respectful to wildlife. That's all it boils down to, is just being respectful.
So what should people that want to really hone their craft with underwater photography, something you see out there happening pretty regularly that you wish you could just tell them, just, hey, stop doing that? What is it?
I think I already said it just right then, but chasing wildlife, that's a huge thing. There's different wildlife. I dive with humpback whales where there's heat runs, and you're never going to catch a humpback whale in a heat run, for one. You're going to get the shots as they pass by. You're never going to catch them. And then swimming with sharks, if you're chasing after them, they don't like that, and they're going to start swimming faster, and you potentially end up scaring that species off, and then you won't even get any photos at all of that. Treat the beings how you would like to be treated.
And you're saying they really sense that?
Oh yeah, they most definitely do.
You're comfortable, you're respectful, they'll chill.
Yeah, because it's going to make them relax. When you first get in the water with sharks, there's different body languages that they'll let you know. They'll have their pectoral fins down, or they'll do like jaw gaping or swimming a little bit more frantically. But as they get comfortable with you, they'll kind of ease out and their fins will open up and they're just cruising along. And there's no better feeling in the world than being at a place like Tiger Beach or Tahiti or someplace like that and swimming next to a tiger shark, this big, massive apex predator that you grew up with this fear having, and you're swimming right alongside of it and looking at its big, dark eye. It's an amazing feeling for sure.
What would you tell new photographer mechanically? A couple of tricks that you know that you use, and when people get out there, you're like, oh, let me show you a trick. A couple of tricks that you find yourself showing people a lot so they can take a better picture.
The best thing to do is kind of get your settings dialed in above surface. Obviously, you know, like you're gonna have to make a few tweaks and stuff underneath the water, but get that camera dialed above the surface and just have fun with it. The biggest thing is having fun and learning. I mean, to this day, I'm learning new things. You know, there's just so many different techniques, so many different edits, like editing style, always changing. So the main thing is just have fun. Like with diving, you know, scuba diving. The number one rule for most people is obviously have fun, but you want to be safe, but have fun and just love what you're doing.
And is there anything that you feel like you kind of had to learn the hard way with?
Everything's hard, you know, and in reality, and none of this has come really easy. You know, the main thing is kind of like what you were asking me at the beginning of this interview is you seem like you have a big following and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I've been on Instagram since, gosh, like 2011, you know,
wow.
So it's taken years. And I mean, there's still people that have way bigger followings than I do. And I by no means feel like I have a huge following, but the biggest lesson I would say is just put time in and don't think that it's gonna come easy and overnight. Just don't give up and don't get discouraged.
Just to recap, biggest thing is get comfortable in the water, especially if you're scuba diving.
Oh yeah.
You got to have kind of that down pat before you can start adding to it. Be respectful of the animals. They sense your comfort. Don't chase them. Have fun with it. And then you said get your settings and understand your camera on land to where you're pretty dialed in by the time you get into the water.
Yeah, most definitely. That'll help you out. And a big thing for me, you know, back in the day, no one really did that much video. You know, everybody was focusing on photos. So the video curve for me has been kind of a little challenging since I gotten into it. And one thing for that is getting your focus dialed before you jump in. You know, a secret for me is, and I learned from a good buddy of mine, is focus on your fin. Stick your foot out and focus on your fin. That way your focus is already kind of set at that range. And then once you get in, you'll be able to lock focus. Because
while you're still on the boat?
Yeah, while you're still on the boat. The cameras that we're shooting with, they're not meant to go underwater. You know, we're making these housings to go underwater. And I constantly get questions asked like, how do I get this in focus and how do I get that in focus? And I have to explain to people that you got to think about it in a sense where cameras aren't made to go underwater. There's all these little particles that are going to capture the focus and capture your camera's attention. So that's something that you always have to think about when you're shooting a photo.
And you said video is your new frontier a little bit.
I wouldn't say my new frontier. I feel like it's more in demand now in a business aspect. A lot more people are liking video. For me, I still love photo. You can't put a video up on a frame on your wall, you know?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There's just something about photography and an actual photo for me where you capture that moment and you don't need the video, you know. I like the story behind it more than watching it, you know. Like take that split shot of that tiger shark, for instance. I can still like replay that in my mind, and if someone asks me about it, I can be like, yeah, this is what happened and this is when I took it.
What would you want to leave anybody with, like one piece of advice, if this is the only thing they saw from this interview, they want to become great underwater photographers?
I hate to be repetitive, but have fun. You know, don't get discouraged. If a photo doesn't turn out just how you like it, then keep on trying and eventually it'll happen. And do things your way is a big one. You know, there's a lot of people out there, not to knock anybody that does it or anything, do your own thing, be your own person and do your own edits.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks,
Yeah,
John
man.
Garza. John
Definitely.
Garza
I'm stoked we finally got to link up, and we've been trying to do this for a while now. So
this was nice and convenient. If you want to support my channel, go to sweetwaterscuba.com. We have all the good stuff like the shirts, the hats, the stickers, everything. Autographed kids books are on there and wholesale opportunities for retailers. We're on almost every major channel, put out daily content, new stuff all the time. I'm on live all the time, so hopefully I'll see you on either TikTok, Kenny_Dial, Instagram, Sweetwater_Scuba, or just search me in your browser, Kenny Dial. One of those should come up. Finally, the YouTube channel has all the podcasts and all of the short form stuff. It actually kind of has everything in one spot. Either way, I hope to see you on one of these apps, on one of these pages. Whatever connects us to the underwater world, I hope to see you there. Let's show the rest of the world the rest of the world.